And we're live. Hello and welcome. This is the 85th episode of HEX Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin, and oh my gosh, we're about to break 10,000 subscribers on this YouTube page. And so it's been a huge journey, and I want to thank everybody who's been liking and subscribing, but really building this community together. And today, I think, is going to be a day that I make a really big announcement. And so I want to get to that, but that's actually unrelated to the title of the video. So there's actually going to be two different topics today. One topic is going to be I'm forking the education system because I think that it can be built better on HEX and Pulse Chain and crypto. And then the second topic is there's a longevity whale out there that I've been interacting with on the blockchain, and it's probably the coolest thing that I've ever done in my 6 years of crypto history. So I think today is going to be a really good episode. Thanks for being here, and let's get on with the intro.
It's from Maddie ALLin of HEX Therapy Live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. He does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff, like, as his gig, because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like, he helps heal people.
So it seems like just the other day that I remember uploading the video to YouTube that I had recorded from Twitter Spaces saying that Richard Hart was going to fork Ethereum and create something called Pulse Chain. And, that's pretty significant because we know that not all of crypto conforms to the first principles that people have heard about us talk about on this channel. Whether you watched the video with myself and David Feeder and Jack Levin from this past Tuesday, where we talked about really the game theory of how more people can win in crypto, and started to touch on some of the, I think, the inspiration for me wanting to fork the education system is because we know that the technology that YouTube gives us and Telegram and all these platforms that we have, that those platforms, they can be used for good or for bad. And but there's a lot of good that can come from education. Now, when we think about what's wrong with the current education system, I think that we would have to investigate, how is a university different than YouTube, right? And some of the differences there have to do with the payment models that are used. And, it also kind of speaks to what's wrong with just broadcasters in general, being influencers who, at least in the crypto space, are very incentivized to be paid shills and to do things that lead them down a slippery slope to making their audience for sale. And so the whole freemium model that the world uses for education outside of institutions, outside of universities, seems to rely on just hoping that the broadcaster won't turn evil or, get discouraged by negative feedback, because there's 3 out of 3,000 haters that can bring some people down, but I think in general, it's also a question of like, how do we motivate people not only to be the best teachers that they can be in the world, but also how can we motivate people to learn and to want to learn, and how can we pay people to learn? How can you pay yourself? And so those are some of the themes that people are going to recognize. They've heard me talk about some of these concepts before, but I think crypto really meets its ultimate use case when it comes to education, and not necessarily when it comes to money. And so we can talk about that here. on this episode. One of the experiments that I'm running is to have a group that it's a Telegram group that people can take a course that I'm teaching. And this is the first course offering that I've had ever. And I'm calling it pls.academy, which is not just a name, but also a website. So you can go to pls.academy and you can see the blog post that explains how to join the group. And I had been experimenting with paid people paying to take the course and then trying to open it up for free. And I think both of those models have certain flaws in them because people don't necessarily know that they're going to be getting something of value ahead of time. And why wouldn't you want to educate everybody? Why isn't there enough value created from that? And I think that at the end of the day, my experiment is not going to answer every question that ever existed when it comes to crypto and education, but I want to address certain really specific use cases and pretty much create a model so that other people can run their own experiments using what we've learned from our experiment. So if you haven't joined the class already, I would highly recommend it. The 3rd out of 4 episodes that covers Chain Analysis 101, I think that was a really good episode because we moved beyond the absolute basics and got to start to dive into more of understanding, seeing how the blockchain comes alive and how we can see the records of everything that happened in these 2 different situations. One was a true crime situation where HEX 19 got hacked about 6 or 7 months ago or something for $80 million worth of HEX. And still to this day, 13 days ago, the hacker was still moving around funds on that account. So that's something that is, I think, really interesting to people. And it's a good example of using chain analysis to try to look into a situation where people are trying to hide their activity and do the wrong thing. And then the other example of chain analysis that we went into was discovering for the first time what happened to the Pulse hot list sacrifice funds that they got staked, and being able to learn how to track stuff like that, how to learn how to track those funds to understand, even though we didn't have any expectations of the founders and what they would do with the money from the sacrifice, we're seeing what they did with the money from the sacrifice. And it's something that no other sacrifice has ever done, which is to stake the HEX and basically use all the coins that they got in every different currency to buy HEX, which helps HEX holders who I think in general have the ethos of delaying gratification, educating others, trying to be the best community in the crypto space. And so that experiment, it's going really well. There's over 500 people who have signed up in the Telegram to take the course. And I think that's just the beginning, right? That's just the first 2 or 3 weeks that we've been running this experiment. And it will continue to probably have more network effects and really be a cool example of not just the content that people are looking for, but we also want to have like a different, we want to play around with the different incentives and structures, the infrastructure that can be created in order to give people access to better education. And because I think today we live in a world where there is every reason for people to learn from the best people in the world. And being connected to the internet and having YouTube and other mediums really gives us the chance to try to attract experts. In this case, I'm an expert in certain things, and I will be looking to partner with other experts who are wanting to join the academy and teach things. And I have to kind of figure out what are the standards going to be. and then give that as basically a model that other people can copy. So what is my fork of the education system going to look like? Well, first of all, it's not going to have its own token. I think that creating your own token, if you're not already a billionaire or a multimillionaire and highly motivated by other things, and like there's a lot of ways, even if you meet those criteria, that it could mess you up. It could be the wrong incentive structure. And so, and, you know, I think that there are ways to do it legally, but there are a lot of ways it can go wrong just from an incentive structure point of view. And so I think that probably the most responsible way I can go about this experiment is to fork the education system in a way that does not create its own token. This will be built on HEX and Pulse Chain. So the idea is that instead of bringing together the world's experts and paying them some like pittance and like burdening them with all these extra tasks that a university would do, this new model would be to try to recruit people just because they have a passion for teaching and they don't have an ulterior motive. And that would have to be piloted and tested out, but I'm already testing it, right? Because we had about 5 people pay for or maybe 10 people pay for the first course, and then we kind of started giving it away for free. And the free part really got me thinking, because the majority of like the world's games and apps and things that people sign up for is oftentimes it's like a freemium model. And the payment model and the incentive structure is you offer something for free and then you eventually charge people for it. You give users a base experience and then you add on features to make a premium experience, and then you're charging and you're trying to bang people's credit cards every month for a certain amount of money. And you know, that's good and bad. And like we can put that aside for a minute though, and we can say, what's even more valuable than designing a system that routes through the fiat system or that routes through a crypto system that could become corrupt? And that's what we see is like 90% of the crypto tokens that are created like become corrupt, even if they don't start out that way. And so I think it's important to like build on top of something that has the properties of like delaying gratification, of not destroying the environment when it comes to Pulse Chain, right? Delaying gratification when it comes to HEX. And so this would be basically like an open source fork of education. We could talk about how it might be a type of hybrid soft fork and hard fork. And we can talk in the future kind of about what the differences are there and what that would mean. Basically, can you migrate some of your qualifications in a way that makes sense onto the blockchain? But at the end of the day, here's the big idea, is that isn't it more valuable, instead of charging people a nominal amount of money that stops them from getting signed up for the course and really stops them from really being more motivated to do things? What if we had a system where you just had to do your homework in order to pay to unlock the next piece of coursework, the next piece of education? And so if it's never, if the course is never set up to where it's free, then people will work harder and learn more and get over the low motivation situation that they could be in. And then if you never have to charge for it, then you can just be way more competitive if you are attracting the best teachers, or teachers that are good enough to give people the skills they need that are really going to be valuable, and then have the blockchain as a way to validate and to create like social gamification and badges and points and NFTs and all the kind of stuff that people would need in order to celebrate and show off and kind of validate their accomplishments in the education modules that you'd have. So, and we've already started this, and it's already in its kind of pilot program, and you can join still for free. I think the link still works. Now, I keep changing some of the design elements of this experiment because I think that that's the best way for me to understand what the most effective methods are for teaching. But I can already tell that I love having an audience of people who have taken extra steps compared to all of you who are watching without doing anything, and so I can really imagine how valuable it would be to have any size class that is doing more work than people who are just watching for free on YouTube. And watching for free on YouTube is definitely a funnel that helps bring people in and gives people kind of the trust or the first exposure that they need in order to do more work, in order to unlock more class content. But I think that this is a model that I'm not necessarily aware exists anywhere else. And so it would be like a new it would be a new model of combining like proof of homework education with like freemium, blockchain, HEX, and pulse chain credentialing, something like that. So how long do you have to sign up, Crypto Gains Club? I haven't really decided yet, but I think it's still probably another day that you have to sign up. You go to the website pls.academy and then like click on the link, and it should take you to the Chain 101 group. Or if you go to t.me/PLS Academy, then it will take you to, you can look in the pinned messages and see the link to join. And if it's expired, then you can keep checking back in the PLS Academy Telegram in case I decide to let more people in. I'm going to drop the link in the live chat here. So, let me see. I got some notes here. So I think the best use case of HEX is not just paying your future self when it comes to financial benefits, but also managing productive contingencies via education on the blockchain and not blockchain education, right? There's a difference there between putting education on the blockchain and using money as like a motivator. If you're not doing your homework, then you can pay in HEX, and your HEX can be staked, and you can work to get it back, or you can donate it, or like whatever you want to do. You have options to either do work or pay money to get the skills that you need so that you can earn more and contribute more and be more productive in society. I think it's really important for us to remember that money is not what makes money valuable. Money is just an accounting system for keeping track of all the goods and services that are produced for productivity. And so when we really look back at like what was money 20,000 years ago, before language was invented as part of the accounting system to create money and to increase the coordination of humans and productivity and all this other stuff. People have looked back at the oldest written records in cavemen days and stuff, and they can see that the first things that people recorded were keeping track of favors, and favors are thought to be like the predecessor to money. And so in a very real sense, I think that money is, Robert Breedlove has a whole channel based on what is money, and he thinks Bitcoin is money, and that's like cool for him. and for like all of his friends who some of them have Bitcoin and some of them are selling their audience. But it really struck me today when I was listening to this NFT debate again on Twitter, multiple hours, like people I used to respect in Bitcoin, Tone Vase, Simon Dixon, all these new NFT people, a bunch of really smart people, all realizing together in real time that crypto education always comes back to what bags do you hold? And, if that's what motivates people, then that needs to be improved. And even if we can't totally separate that, right? Like I'm in HEX, but I'm separated from my HEX more than a Bitcoiner is separated from their Bitcoin because I've time locked. And so now I'm invested in making a better future. Bitcoiners are only invested in making more people buy Bitcoin so that their Bitcoin is more valuable. But I think that we can prove by applying HEX, by finding HEX's ultimate use cases beyond just money, I think that we can prove that we are different than just trying to pump our own bags. So, like originally the idea was that pls.academy would stand for like Pulse, like it's the ticker for Pulse, which like I still think that could be true, but I also think that another acronym that we could come up with would be that it's a proof learning system, PLS, proof learning system. And so that could be part of what PLS Academy stands for. I think that education has not yet been developed on Web3, and Web3 is a scam. We know that, like, fake metaverses and stuff. But if people want to play games and pretend like having an avatar on the blockchain is different than having an avatar on the internet, and to pretend that like posting stuff in chat rooms that have always existed for tens of years is different now that it's like pretend on the blockchain, then like, yeah, let's pretend. That's cool. Let's do it. So pls.academy would be the first like Web3 open source education platform where people do homework instead of paying to unlock more content. Some of the best educators in the world don't necessarily need more money, but they would benefit from a network of motivated individuals that can do homework to change the world. You could think of homework NFTs with like having an ultimate utility. They give you the skills to succeed, like motivation, social support, and proving the value of your own skills. So in the proof of homework model, it's pretty common sense that it would be a superior model for learning. And this is already launched, kind of, like, surprise, I already launched a fork of traditional education. Just go to the website pls.academy and sign up now before I make you do more homework to be able to sign up. So in this model of like a freemium access to some of the best educators in the world they're incentivized by you doing your homework. And maybe they're just such good teachers that they're already rich, or they can take 5 hours out of their week to teach something without it being a full-time thing. And then they would have the benefit of experiencing this alternate model. So in this model, homework could earn basically reputation tokens in the form of NFTs, and those NFT reputation tokens could be used to mint different levels of certification, which again would be an NFT. And then those certification levels can mint like signal tokens that are used to prove the intersection of your own motivation and skill acquisition. And so this is very much in line with some of the things I heard Jack Levin talking about. And I hope like, I hope he and I are able to stay in touch and, you know, both contribute to some of these ideas that it seems like that we have an overlap in. You know, I was the first person in the HEX ecosystem to create NFTs. I talked to Richard at the first, it was the first online HEX conference about the use case for NFTs that are free and are just badges. And people can still go to my website, hexbadge.io, and you can see, I think I ended up charging like $20 for them because that was the cost to launch the NFTs. But at the end of the day, this new system on Pulse Chain is going to cost a lot less. It'll be pennies to prove certain things on the blockchain, and that's where some of the magic happens. But really, I think the magic is not creating a token, not selling NFTs even for $20. That it's really bigger than just revenue. It's it's a post kind of like revenue model, because it all comes back to if the best educators in the world can make the world have more skills, can teach skills, then everybody's richer, because people are more productive, and the people who are doing the homework are paying themselves in a way, except they don't have to route through the evil legacy financial system. They don't have to route through the fiat system. And we know that like routing through we know from decentralized automated market makers and different things like that, we know that it enriches middlemen when you even route through the dollar, and that's that kind of thing. Crypto Gains Club, you already got your day one FOMO badge. That's right. This was like the logo that I first made when I started making content. It's like a coin that says ALLin, and it's got like a starburst ball of energy coming out of it. And that was part of what I used for the symbols for the first HEX badges. Okay, so ideas alone don't change the world. Behavior changes the world. But behavior changes hard when we don't apply the advances in behavioral psychology and how it can be combined with these new forms of monetary technology. I used to say that contingency management has the strongest effect size in all of psychology, which kind of disrupted what most people would think was the strongest effect size in psychology, which is talk therapy, because it's the most commonly used. But now I think that there's an even stronger effect than contingency management. And the reason why we usually don't see it and have like good research statistics on it is it's so obvious that we don't, we can't see it. And that's work. So like in the US, over half the population is employed. It's like, then you can do the math on how much the government is lying about like the actual unemployment rate versus like if they counted everybody who, would work if they had the right circumstances, then it would be, they'd be counting it completely differently. They say that the unemployment rate is like 10%, but really over 40% of people don't work because of disability, because they aren't being counted correctly by the government, and that sort of thing. But whatever. In the end, getting paid to do work it's the most common form of behavior change in the world, I would say. Yes, swear works. Contingency management is it's related to paying people to change their behaviors. Correct. Pulse Hollis does have a use case, which is doing your own research and having access to like a listing website that has reputation scores and stuff. So getting paid to do work is the most common form of behavior change in the world. This is great in some ways. It creates behavioral activation for people, and in a single dimension of your life, if it's demanding enough. Also, not to mention that creating enough goods and services that the population of humanity can try to survive and thrive. That's what economics is all about, or should be about, maybe. But the problem with, but there are also problems with this, having work for other people as the strongest effect size in the world. Because getting paid to do work for someone else, it doesn't help you develop self-determination, and probably we can imagine that there are elements in working for yourself and doing things that you're proud of, and not just working for somebody else. Like, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else, but if people had the tools to work for themselves and be more productive and more self-determined, and we could measure that they were being more productive, then that would be a win-win for everybody. But especially it would be a win-win. Well, it would especially be a win-win for the individual and for the society. What's more is that education, when it's done properly, leads to skill acquisition, and that can increase the functioning parts of humanity significantly. Education in its education as a concept is a super productive, and I think it's kind of barbaric in a sense that we aren't using the technologies that we have today, like YouTube and Telegram, to increase the online reach of the best educators in the world, and that we haven't set up a model that really monetizes it without charging people. Basically, give people the chance to develop the skills without charging them, and then you're skipping the monetary system and you're just giving people the training that they need to make more goods and services in the world, and then everybody's richer. So this whole system of accounting with money, I don't think is really necessary. Education doesn't require money in today's world. I think it would take an unusually ethical group of leaders in crypto to build the right incentives for anybody in the world to get rich from monetizing their own training. I think that the plot twist is that socialist funding for education is also outdated. The best educators in the world they would be advantaged to not charge, but give education for free. Sorry, they would be, the best educators in the world are advantaged to not charge, but not give education for free, rather to specify the homework that is contingent on unlocking more skills training. Since work is what creates the underlying value of money, cutting out the monetary middlemen and the education middlemen would create a vastly more efficient society. But the mad gains in efficiency and abundance go much further. When you cut out or minimize the store of value aspect of money, then it takes away the perverse incentives of unjust power structures that aren't completing the loop of providing skills that scale and then paying the people who actually did the work. And, then letting society benefit the educators, or letting people donate to reward the educators, or having the educators be rewarded by something that also is not money, reputation, NFTs. Delayed forms of money would be better than just regular money. When people migrate their skill acquisition, they migrate or sprout a new basis of their labor. what does this look like? Imagine working for yourself where someone else still pays you, the consumer. Now imagine paying yourself for achieving goals using your savings. So without having a customer even in mind, other than yourself, your future self. The value that you have stored in your savings with legacy dollars stops you from being motivated because no one else is creating contingencies around it. But with programmable money, you could create contingencies for yourself. You could create homework for yourself. You could sign up for classes that give you the homework that you want to do and that hold you accountable. So it's a system of, it's building education on the blockchain is more about a system of accounting for the work you've done, and then being able to realize the value of having that skill being acquired and then being put to good use, right? Now this is fun, and I'm probably not going to shut up about this anytime soon. According to the Smithsonian Institute, the wheel had been invented and used for pottery 300 years before the discovery that wheels could be used for transportation. That was a part that was needed, part of what was needed to substantiate the Industrial Revolution and support all of human life today, for sure. The best use case for money is not simply storing value like a fiat caveman or like only using the wheel for pottery. The best use case for money is self-managing productive contingencies. This unlocks a new function of money in programmable / digital / crypto form compared to physical cash or government IOUs that both lose value over time. Maybe traditional money did a good job as a stable coin, unit of account, medium of exchange, and store of value, maybe by yesterday's standards. But as we're covering now, like, money isn't the end all be all. In the end, having money as an accounting system for productivity has led to a lot of middlemen, has led to a disconnect between the skills training that people are trying to pay for in college, but they're not really getting, skills that people are getting on YouTube, but they're getting it for free. And that's not the ideal model for the individual anyway, because it's not motivating you. It's not giving you that credibility score of that you have the skill and that you put in the work. And then it also doesn't always allow you to have as good of a network as the internet can give you of connecting you to people who would be willing to build by your side and would be willing to, see where the synergy is in building whatever you want to build and applying your skills to be productive in the world. So that's what we see with me being a streamer. Me being a streamer has connected me to tons of people who help me be more productive and a better educator. So back to education. With like dutiful first principles, we can predict and design the game theory and incentives for the best educators in the world better than government socialists or profiteering middlemen or private universities or public institutions that don't have the transparency, don't have the efficiency, don't have the incentive to use technology. They're being distracted by their own politics, right? There are lots of reasons why breaking this old model and innovating and taking the next leap forward in education is so important. And that's why, for those of you who are just joining, I'm forking the education system and I'm building it on top of HEX and Pulse Chain. And you use proof of homework to get access to the more content, and then that proof of homework becomes an NFT where now you can prove what skills you have. We all benefit from programming mental health into our money. Part of our societal mental health, a topic that never gets talked about, is our checks and balances. For those we choose to be in power by voting for them, even with our attention. What would honest, not-for-profit checks and balances look like in crypto and in education? Our ed on the blockchain checks and balances can include reputational accountability and transparency, but the most important rules, I think, would make sense as follows. So you want to have audience divisibility. So you want it to be like, and this is what goes back to like kind of like open source, but also kind of just the philosophy of the people who are running this. You want to have easy portability between educators and in such a way that fosters ideological diversity. We see that Twitter is designed to put people into echo chambers, and then at best to just like make fun of people who don't share your own view, and to have these clashes between people who take things seriously and people who, I should say, people who take things more seriously and people who don't take things very seriously at all, right? And so, for example, being in it for the tech is like a meme in crypto, and that that's an outrage. That's an outrage right there, because if people weren't so busy trying to, scheme and like scam everybody out of their money, then they would have already figured out some of these things that we're figuring out in the HEX community, which is there are better ways for educating, there are better ways for storing value, there are better ways for delaying gratification and for having the interplay that you would want to have between money making you a better person instead of a worse person, or instead of just the same person, right? Another kind of like North Star kind of thing that would go along with pls.academy. It's an open source model, so others can create their own academies, which would act as nodes, but it doesn't stop certain values from being centralized within our education node. And so, that's kind of mixing up some blockchain terminology with this idea of like values. And the idea there is that political structures can become polarizing and corrupt and stuff. And so part of the checks and balances is just like, well, if you don't like how we're running our academy, then go create your own. And that's cool. Like, and we'll give you the tools to do that. Right. And to even have that be open source, even if we don't agree with you on it. But at the end of the day, part of the ethos too, it's like not expecting work from others in any respect, right? Like people have tried to come on my channel and tell me like certain things and tell me I'm a scammer because I'm not promoting their scam, which is silly, but like that's how some people think. And so some people are thinking just so unidimensionally about free speech that they end up letting their world become polarized echo chambers that just rage against the closest person that's different from you, and creates class warfare and race warfare and like all of these things that people have probably had enough of. And so there would kind of be like the disclaimer with this pls.academy, like, for example, if I wanted to if I wanted to say that for somebody to be affiliated with the academy, then we would have a certain like set of standards, like you have to show up and teach your class. You have to, I don't know, not talk about things that would horribly offend people. And at the same time, we would be giving people the tools so that they could start their own version of it if that was something they felt like was limiting them, that they could go start their own brand, and that they could use the parts of our system that are working, that work for them too and work for others. And so they wouldn't just be limited by us having autonomy over our own reputations, essentially. So, and that's what you like to see in science, is lots of people trying similar experiments that are slightly different, and sometimes even the same experiment twice or multiple times, and to see what works and what doesn't. Because when we think about another first principle of blockchain is like being decentralized, but we also know that being decentralized comes with its own risks. You don't just want to hand over the world to like the next populist movement, because that we've seen that has led to hundreds of millions of people being killed in the name of socialism and populism. So that's not the way either. It's not just like so simple as anybody can say whatever they want and I have to disseminate that information. Like that is not how things have to be. For the world to be free, you can let people create their own brands and let people have their own voices and encourage that and have a diversity of ideas without having everybody's reputation held up in one. And I want to shout out Hexologist, who's one of the people who inspired me to start streaming. I'm like, we're so close today. I think we may be crossing the line into 10,000 subscribers. And thanks everybody for being here. I am forking the education system. I'm building it on top of HEX and Pulse Chain. And it's going to be open source and like partially permissionless and partially like you have to go build your version yourself if you don't like the version I built. And the first experiment that we've been running is going super well, where it's proof of homework, and that doing the homework pays for you to be in the class and allows you to unlock the next piece of content that will give you the skills you need to have a more valuable education that gets recorded into an NFT on the blockchain. And so the first step that you do now to become a founding member is you want to join pls.academy by going to Telegram. And I'll drop the link for that again. But for another like day or something, you can join for free. And then I'll just I will add more requirements, but we won't be switching to a paid model. So that's something I've decided just recently is screw getting paid. I want to see that you are so motivated by the learning that you're doing homework. And, the homework will also have to be something that's not like coercive, and it's not going to put you out or something. Like that has to be altruistic too. But at the end of the day, I think it's a different model than has existed before, because it seems like everything is just freemium only to trick you into paying for something eventually, which like this is I'm announcing, I'm committing to not doing that. The commitment is that it's free, but you have to do something to show your motivation, to show that you're serious about the learning. And that is what I have found rewarding about this 3-week experiment so far, is that we have motivated like over 500 people to join the Telegram group. And that's where you get access to the 3 videos that exist for the first course in PLS Academy, which is Chain Analysis 101. And we uncovered 2 amazing stories last night. And then there's a 3rd story that I'm going to preview tonight here in the second part of the episode, where this is like the coolest thing that I've ever done on the blockchain. That's what the second topic will be. So you can go to t.me/PLS Academy, or you can go to the website pls.academy, and you have to go to the pinned link in the Telegram room. And that pinned link will give you the link to join the Chain 101 room. When you join the Chain 101 room, then you're in the right place. Before, we were asking people to verify their transactions to prove that they sacrificed for Pulse Chain or Pulse X. And before that, we were saying, we were nudging people to sacrifice $400 for Pulse Hotlist. Before that, we were just letting people pay $99. But moving forward, you're not going to pay unless part of this model is maybe if you don't do your homework, you'd have an option to pay, and that gets turned into HEX, and then that HEX becomes a reward for you later on to do your homework. So that's why I say I'm building this on top of HEX and on top of Pulse Chain, and why I'm announcing, so you all can hold me accountable and I can hold myself accountable, that I'm not going to be launching a token. I'm not going to be, not going to be doing this for profit. When it comes to like auditing, I'm not really sure what that model would look like yet. I know that right now, all you have to do, the only homework you have to do to qualify for the course is you just have to click on a link and then click on another link. So when you go to t.me/PLS Academy, you open up that group, go to the pinned message, and then click the invite link that's active for another like 24 hours. And then that takes you to the Chain 101 group. You hit the join button, and now you're in. You have access for all 4 episodes. 3 have been recorded so far. And I'm about to go into a preview of what the 4th Chain Analysis 101 course is going to be about, which is something I discovered last night on the blockchain after I got done teaching the Chain Analysis 101 course. And this is such a cool story. Like I said, this is the coolest thing I've ever done on the blockchain, other than send text to my future self, maybe. But this is pretty cool. So here we go. I found out that that somebody donated this huge amount of money for the legal fund to try to get the $27.5 million back that was donated to Aubrey de Grey, and then they like kicked him out of his foundation. So some of you will remember I created this. I'll bring it up here on the screen. I created this blog post, and it says, Maddie ALLin airdrops NFTs for Aubrey de Grey donors. This was on April 5th. I'm going to share my screen. So this is what I was doing last night, is I was thinking to myself, like, wait a second, somebody just donated $150,000 to the legal fund after they saw the Pulse Conference online, and they realized that their help was needed. And I heard through the grapevine that the person who donated the $150,000 was the same person who was the $10 million donor in the Pulse Chain sacrifice, who was the highest donor to the Sens Foundation, right? And, people who haven't done their chain analysis, and people who are even kind of like skeptical of the whole Pulse Chain thing, they had kind of cynically accused Richard Hart of being the one who, they accused him of being the one who donated the $10 million, because he's been bragging about how $27.5 million was donated. But I never really suspected that. I believed that, Richard, he takes credit for creating this innovative model where he's airdropping people something, but I wouldn't see why he would donate his own funds other than through the OA sacrifice. And, just it's free promotion. And it was just by his word of mouth, he was able to raise $27.5 million. Anyway, when we do our 4th chain analysis course coming up next week on Wednesday, for anybody who's joined the Telegram group, PLS Academy, we'll do a little dive into that wallet, just to give you further evidence and to like brag on this person for all the good that they've done. But I think you'll also agree with me that it's definitely not Richard Hart's wallet, because it's got a lot of other coins in it, which is good news for our ecosystem, because it proves that people who are into other stuff are into Pulse Chain. And so anyway, if we looked at like what the $10 million donor, what the Pulse Chain whale who gave the highest amount to longevity research, $10 million, and that they'll get Pulse points for that. If we look on Pulse Hotlist, which we will in the chain analysis course, you'll see that that wallet would have been the number 6 highest sacrificer for Pulse Chain. If we look at not the OA, right? The OA came in at the end with 14 billion, but if we consider that the OA has never sold any HEX, then it's kind of really interesting, right? So anyway, so that proves that this person is a whale. And when we go here to the addresses, so I kind of gamified the whole, if you want to donate to any of these Aubrey de Grey causes, then I'll give you an NFT for free. And I design the NFTs so that they're like slightly different based on how much you give. And I made these 4 different levels, right? Just to like gamify it. Like it's a good starting point for raising money for charity and stuff and getting the word out. So you're like level 1 if you give $1,000, and it could be like to any of the 3 addresses: Aubrey de Grey's address, if you just want to put the money in his hands, or to the Methuselah Foundation, and then it's earmarked for Aubrey. And that gives you a tax benefit. Or the third option was to donate to the legal fund, which the person who is in charge of that wallet came on the pulseconference.online day 2 during the longevity discussion. And that's the person who's been coordinating the legal, the legal fight to get the 27.5 million used for what it was intended for. But so anyway, if it has 1 star border around it, that's like level 1. And then the highest level is like, if you give $1 million, then you're level 4, and there's like 4 star borders around it. And so you could see like Maddie.eth is the address that I created these from. And then I listed the addresses to Aubrey de Grey's wallet and to the Methuselah Foundation's wallet that they have earmarked for us. And then for the legal fund, you don't get a tax benefit, but you get to help fight that fight and make control of those funds come back under our control. And so if we go to this wallet, we can see that there was $150,000 donation in US dollar coins, and that wallet is the same wallet that sacrificed for Pulse Chain $10 million. And this is the wallet ending in AACC. Right now it's got $1.9 million worth of Ethereum in it and $271,000 worth of other tokens. Now, where does this story turn into a plot twist? Last night, I was going to give this person their NFT, level 3, right? They donated more than $100,000. So I wanted to send them their NFT. I hadn't minted those yet, but I started to mint them. And of course, it wasn't working super well because NFTs kind of suck, but I think I ended up getting it down right. Lots and lots of coins here, but you go to Maddie.eth, you can see that I sent it. Here we go, Rarible. They have one token in there. Then go to the inventory. Here's the NFT, and like it's not even showing up right for some reason. But anyway, yeah, I'll get that figured out. Don't worry. We'll make it show up super nice like the ones did. I know Kincaid Honey is in the audience. He's the first one who got a level 1 NFT for donating $1,000 to these causes, and has been the other like biggest donor other than this Pulse longevity whale, as I'm calling them. But here's where things get even better. Okay. I discovered by doing chain analysis on the Pulse longevity whale that they have stakes, HEX stakes, that they forgot about, that have been bleeding out for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. For 80 weeks, they've been bleeding out. They forgot. They forgot that they had HEX stakes. And there is this really, really, really obscure function that you can run. The HEX contract was designed for just this situation where somebody like me comes along and sees that somebody has donated $150,000 for a cause that I care about. And, how can I thank this person? Well, here's one way that I thanked them, other than just giving them a stupid NFT, was I ended one of their stakes to stop it from bleeding out more, because I don't have their phone number. I don't have their address. They're anonymous to me. This is all I have. All I have is their Ethereum address that they chose to show the world that they wanted to give $150,000 to longevity research. And I showed them how much I appreciate that by saving one of their stakes from bleeding out down to zero. And yeah, the technical term is running the good accounting function for someone else. And Richard designed the good accounting function just in case somebody, you knew one of your friends was in jail and you could figure out what their address was, you could end a stake for them. Or if, you were separated from your private keys or something, there's this really weird protocol that you can run to good account somebody else's stakes so they don't keep bleeding out. Now, I wish I would have found this address much sooner, because already about 80% of the money or 90% of the money has already bled out from these stakes. And I even contacted a couple of developers to try to figure out, because there were 4 stakes. There are 4 stakes that are bleeding out from this account. I'll give you a little chain analysis training right now. If we go to stakehex.today and we enter this address, oops, I don't want to connect. Anyway, here we go. These were supposed to end on basically on big payday, like November 18th, 2020. And it looks like there's a lot of HEX here in these accounts, but what we can't see is that this website isn't really used to taking into account such like a weird situation where somebody's been bleeding out for almost 2 years now. And so if we go to a different website, the one that Future Us and I made, go.tshare.app / account equals, and then we enter their address, then we can see it's going to ask me to connect. I have a streaming wallet that doesn't have anything in it that I can connect. And we can see under active stakes, it looks like a lot of money, $152,000, but a lot of it's already bled out. We actually have to drill down into the details to be able to see where these stakes are. And they all started on day 3, which is like, is that the day I got into HEX, or was it, I got in on day 4, I think. So it was a 1-year stake, just under a year. And the total value was enough HEX that it's worth $50,000 right now. but they've had a $43,000 penalty, and there was $7,500 worth of HEX remaining. And so out of these 4 stakes, I was able to use this like other weird front end to at least end one of them. So one of these has been ended, and so it saved them like, I don't know, $5,000. And that money would have bled out in the next like 4 months or something, down to 0. So I'm sorry I couldn't save all of your money, Pulse Longevity Whale, but this I think could go down in HEX history for a really cool way to show the power of our community and to show people working together, doing altruistic things for each other. What you did by giving $150,000 to the Aubrey de Grey like legal fund, or it's not under Aubrey's name, but it's under Concerned Longevity Donors. By giving to that legal fund, you're helping to save Aubrey's foundations. You're helping to save, the 2,000 people that gave to the Sens Foundation through Sens, that meant for the funds to be used for long-term longevity breakthroughs. And so this is just one small way that I could try to get back to you, other than just by giving you an NFT, which I think is pretty cool. But like by doing something even more than that, which was finding that you had stakes that you had forgotten about that were bleeding out, and then doing everything I could to at least save one of them. And then I'll see if I can save the other 3. If you don't see this right away, maybe you'll be watching now like you were at the pulseconference.online, and maybe you'll have access to be able to end these stakes yourself now that you've been made aware of them. But it's I think all in all, there's about $15,000 here that you can recover that you may not have meant for it to just bleed out. Gold key, that's my wallet. I don't know whether to take you seriously, but I think I know the identity of, or at least I think I know what account they have on Twitter, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to give any hints. Like, I'm going to protect this person's privacy. And all we're looking at here is just one level of the public wallet that we know is the wallet that is the Pulse Longevity Whale, the person who gave $10 million and then also has made another donation here that is helping to make the world a better place and contribute to longevity. So so what I did is I ran the good accounting function for somebody else. And basically what that does is I paid the ETH gas fees to end the stake so it doesn't bleed away over time. Am I still doing the physical lapel pins? I said I would, so it's still in the mix. I still intend to do that. I want to wait and see if there are more donations that come in so I can order them all at once and get kind of like a bulk discount. And I also want to see that people are interested in claiming the physical pins. The Pulse Longevity Whale seems to value their privacy. Maybe someday they'll come on a stream and they could send me a DM, and I would love to have them on. We could do voice changing, or we could, not show your face, or whatever you want to do. I would love to stream with you, but it's not necessary. And I also believe that I explained in my blog post that if somebody wanted to disclose their mailing address, only to Aubrey de Grey or only to the Methuselah Foundation and not to me, or only to me, and then I could send that to you while preserving your privacy, that would be important to me. So anyway, so this is a super interesting kind of turn of events that I didn't expect. by just delivering somebody the NFT and having the chain analysis skills that I've been teaching in the class, we discovered kind of this altruistic dance that happened on the blockchain, where it was a chain of events, wasn't it? It was one good deed inspired the $10 million donation to the Sens Foundation, inspired, Aubrey de Grey to take a stand against the money not being used for long-term breakthroughs, and then inspired Greg to start the legal fund for concerned longevity donors. And then that caused me to include them in the Pulse conference.online. And then that caused the Pulse longevity whale to donate $150,000 to the legal fund. And then that caused me to check their wallet and discover that they had HEX stakes that are overdue, and caused me to run the good accounting function, which will now go down in history as the first altruistic chain of events that is inspired by longevity here in the HEX history. Is the good accounting, is it only available once the stake is matured? I don't know. That's a good question. If you end a stake early, does it give you the option to good account? I don't know. Good to hear you live. Anyone can run good accounting on any account. You can do good accounting on someone else's stake. Yeah. Not sure what to make of it. Interesting. Yeah. Good accounting. Altruistic and staker. Thank you for incentivizing people to do this type of stuff. My pleasure. Yeah. So can you imagine like how cool all this is working out, that by teaching the chain analysis course, that also played into the chain of events that allowed the Pulse longevity whale to hopefully find out that they have stakes bleeding out, and for at least one of them to be ended, so that you can. So once the good accounting function has been run, whether you're the person who ran it or somebody else ran it for you, then you still have to mint the HEX. You still have to end the stake, but the stake stops bleeding out. And so that's a situation where somebody could choose to never end the stake, but there's also people out in the crowd, maybe they were saying, what if they were letting them bleed out in order to give extra yield to stakers in an altruistic way? And I think the game theory there is that if you really wanted to pay out all the stakers, then you would like just end the stake, restake it for 15 years, and then end it early, thereby paying out all the stakers that way. Be the same amount of money that they would get from letting it bleed out. I don't think that there's really any, maybe there's like a tax advantage of letting it bleed out. And so, but at the end of the day, I think, again, this is just one way that I thought that I could communicate back to the person that, look, I appreciate you. And I see what you're doing, that it's being altruistic. Let me try to do something altruistic back. And look, like the stake, it already bled out for 80 weeks or something. It's like, if you're not happy with that payout that you got already, like that's enough. But this person, they're already giving back a lot. So I think that just in case they forgot about those stakes, it was probably the right thing to do. And again, if they don't want that to happen, if they don't want any tax implications, they don't have to ever mint the HEX. They can just leave it there in the abyss, and then it's still enriching all the HEX stakers because those coins are never coming back onto the market. So it makes HEX more scarce. And it leaves well, I guess the coins don't get minted, so it doesn't raise the market cap, but we're only talking about $5,000 worth of HEX here that was left. So at the end of the day, what's $15,000, of HEX? It's more than just about the money. It's the thought, I hope, that counts to the Pulse longevity whale, that I did this just in case they forgot. And again, if they really want to do this as a payout to people, then they could do that. But my calculus was that these were probably stakes that they forgot about. And if they didn't forget about them, then at least it's the thought that counts, that I was trying to do something altruistic back. And like, that's why this is a perfect example of why the good accounting function exists, other than your friend goes to prison or something. It's like, your friend is this anonymous person who looks like they're doing altruistic things for the charities that I care about. And I want to signal back, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. That's amazing. We don't all have to be so greedy that we're just like, oh, that $5,000 should keep bleeding out because we want that to be paid out to all the 100,000 stakers that exist. Like, there's other stakes bleeding out. We all don't have to get those extra 3 HEX. I think it's more important to show people that we care. Again, it's about being more than just in it for the money. We're in it for the tech. We're in it for the longevity. We're in it for the delayed gratification, for the positive behavior change, for the education, and in it for the tech. Even though I already said that, I'm going to say it again because it's not a meme. Let's say RH or someone did it intentionally, perhaps. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I think I addressed that. I mean, that's good thinking. I'm glad you asked the question. Thanks for your continuous stream. My pleasure. Definitely my wallet. You're a wicked smart dude. Hey, thank you. That answers my question. Thanks, Maddie. This is admittedly a rare situation where Maddie could identify this very special person or entity due to all the generous giving they did from their wallet. Yes. Is there a list of all the stakes bleeding out? I can't remember for all accounts. Yes, there is. And I'll show it to you. If you sign up for my chain analysis course, and I'm going to cover that in the course. And I will show you the tool that I used that is front to end that allows people to end other people's stakes. Super valuable. You don't have to pay for it. All you have to do is click through the links to join the class. And I'll cover that next week on Wednesday when I go live for the last episode of Chain Analysis 101, where we are going to cover what I did here in the Pulse longevity whale altruism chain of events, whatever this event is going down in history for. Hey, Maddie and crew, is it possible to search somehow for stakes that have expired? Yeah. So the one method that I already covered that I'm giving you without you doing any work of joining the Telegram group is here, where you go to go.tshare.app/account equals, and then you put in whatever address you want to spy on. That is for addresses that you know of. Now, there's another way to look at lists of all the expired stakes. There's actually 2 different ways to do it, and that's something we'll cover in the course. Just because I want the free education on YouTube. I want it to motivate people to join for the education that is a part of this new model that I'm creating. Today's the first day. You can count it on your calendar. In UTC time, it's was about 45 minutes into July 22nd, where I said, I'm forking the education system and I'm building it onto HEX and Pulse Chain. And you can rewind if you want to hear what that entails. But it's all related because we're trying to move beyond just looking at crypto as a way to get money. We're looking at crypto as a way to pay ourselves and others the education that comes with increasing your productivity, with becoming the best version of yourself, and how you can unlock your own potential to be productive, to acquire the skills that you need through education and crypto. Yeah. And so I've heard arguments regarding this comment. I've heard arguments. So that this is a super good point. Come Pulse Chain, we could end all the bleeding stakes for super cheap on that chain. While that is true, I think that if there was a big enough stake that was bleeding out, that there might be some situations where we would think maybe that's a good thing that it's bleeding out. The system was designed to have lots of checks and balances in the system. And Richard almost did not include good accounting as one of the features, but it was meant to be something that would come with a certain amount of responsibility and thinking through the game theory. Now, anybody can do it. Anybody could end all the bleeding stakes, but you might want to let some of the stakes bleed if if you think that those coins could be dumped on the market by somebody who doesn't care enough to keep up with the ecosystem and isn't doing anything that's net positive for the system. The reason why I paid $13 to have a low gas fee and wait along, I waited over an hour for the transaction to confirm because I didn't want to waste any money. I wanted to set a good example by doing using all the skills that I know in when you're making a history, you want to make it look as good as possible. And so even though the GUI, the cost of running the transaction at the moment had been 20 GUI, the amount of GUI that I set was 11 because the transaction didn't have to happen immediately. It just had to happen before the next day rolled over, which was still 20 hours away or 15 hours away or whatever. So the other thing is that I couldn't get this function to work again on the same wallet. And I was curious if maybe part of the reason was that all the stakes were started on the same day and two of the stakes were the exact same size and had the same end date. And I wasn't sure if the front end was just getting a little bit confused at that situation, or whether the front end maybe didn't realize that there were still HEX left on those. I think that maybe it could have thought that they bled out all the way, but I don't think that any of them did because they were all started on day 3 and started bleeding out on 14 days after day 353. And so they've all been bleeding for less than 100 weeks, which if you're bleeding out 1% per week, then you wouldn't have bled out 100% yet. So that's why I'm contacting the developer who created that front end and probably going to have some other discussions with smart people tonight to see if there's any way to end those other stakes. But I also realize that there's a possibility that the Pulse longevity whale could be watching this and could go ahead and end those stakes themselves. Or what would be the best way? You could message me on Twitter. And if I'm following you, which I think I am, then I would see the message, or you could get my attention another way. But at the end of the day, yeah, if there's some weird situation, you didn't want those other 3 stakes ended or something, then we could talk. But otherwise, this is my analysis, and this is a cool story to be able to tell, going into the future of a certain super nerdy technical situation where altruism became a chain event. That's a pun intended. So thanks for the generosity of knowledge. Always appreciated. How do blockchains and load into database? How to download blockchain and load into database? That's a more technical question than I can answer because you didn't say which blockchain, and I'm not sure you're I'm not sure how to answer that question on a live stream. But if you really want to know more, you can go to t.me/hexdev, or is it dev hex, or is it, you can search around for like what the dev chat is in Hex and ask questions in there. Freddie Quotes, good to see you. Bang, bang. It would be claimed, sit there unclaimed, dormant, or bleed out and pay stakers win, maybe win and win. They were donating to the community. Yeah. Well, not to RH. Well, the $10 million, was that's for longevity research. I was told I could find future here. Are you talking about Back to the Future or Future Us or who? Congrats on this historic evening, Maddie. I skipped my grandmother's B-Day party, and I know I made the right choice. Wow. Well, hopefully you can do both, and I can wrap up here. What is this? Stocks or something? This is crypto, and it's HEX. And if you want to learn more, you can go to my playlist on YouTube that is hexcontracts.com. It's like the shortcut, and it'll teach you what is HEX and why is it cool and all that kind of stuff. Richard Hart is live. Oh yeah, Swearworks. Since good accounting does exist, no staker can assume that their bleeding stakes would not be ended as a matter of strategy. If Richard's live, then I was almost done anyway, and we can watch that. But you're gonna have to tell me where Richard is live at, because I don't see it on Hex streamers, which is where I would normally see it. So SW33, no, you have some explaining to do. Let me see if I can find it. I'm live. Joker's live. Where do you see Richard Hart live? No, it's a recording from Twitter Spaces. Okay. It's not a live recording. Okay. Cool. But yeah, that's tonight's a historic night because the channel's probably getting close to breaking 10,000 subscribers, and they're not just any subscribers. They're not people who got wrecked and like went away like other channels. This channel gets more views as a ratio of the total number of subscribers than channels that are sometimes 5 and 10 times bigger. And the reason for that is, I think, because of the altruism theme, and because of the education theme, and because of all kinds of reasons. So hit the like and subscribe button if you appreciate this content. I'm looking at my analytics here. Ooh, 15 people away. So it will probably get there in the maybe in the next 24 hours or something. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button just to make history and help us go over 10,000. Get to that extra 0. He uploaded the spaces from earlier on his channel. Okay, cool. Yeah, I figured he might have spoken in the Twitter Spaces earlier that the NFT guys were hosting, like he did last week, because I went in there and it must have been after he had joined and left, because they were still bringing up his name a lot. And so I figured he might have spoken in that, and that'll be cool to see. So here at the end of the episode now, today's been historic because we're breaking 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. These subscribers are people that value crypto being used for its first principles, which is transparency, education, accountability, positive behavior change, replacing middlemen with not more middlemen, but like replacing middlemen with like better technology that is really what Web3 was before the term got used in a scammy way that is now just like super scammy. And like all of the crypto terms, I think, are hard to to use for communication now because they've been so co-opted by people trying to sell their audiences, by people saying that they're DeFi. Like DeFi is a good example of a term that doesn't mean to most people what it should mean based on first principles, because the principles have been so corrupted because there's so much free money in crypto. There's too much free money in crypto. There's too much profiteering. There's the incentives are way too far weighted to the people who are creating things and not to the people who are being the most productive. Because you can make a new ticker and you can take all the money and turn it into marketing, but that doesn't make the world more productive. It just makes people use your system of accounting that is really just a mechanism to enrich the people who understand crypto. And I think that there's a new group of people now, myself being one of the leaders and a lot of other people being the leaders of this new movement of using crypto for more than money. And like I said before, I'm forking the education system. I'm building it on top of HEX and Pulse Chain to give people NFTs for completing tasks in a not-for-profit way that is accountable and responsible and motivates people to get the skills that they need and proves what skills that they have using the blockchain as a way to motivate experts to do what they do best, which is teaching people, and to make the world more productive, which makes the world richer without routing all the money and the value through the dollar, which is too filled with middlemen, and not routing the education through universities that have too much middlemen. Has anyone reviewed Pulse Doge? If you're talking about pulsedogecoin.com, then that's one that I claimed that I've made a video of how to claim. There's actually two different Pulse Doges. Is there any project close to the metaverse as described by sci-fi author Neil Stephenson in his novel Snow Crash? I'm not sure. But PLS Academy will have a metaverse vibe to it. That's easy. I know somebody who's really good at that, who I hope would be willing to collaborate with me. And if not, I would have to figure out myself how to implement the kinds of things that they've put together. So I think what you're going to see on this channel is I think you're going to see very quickly a focused effort to be the first mover here and to coordinate with other people and other channels and to just start proving that this is possible, that with Telegram and YouTube, that we can deliver premium education that inspires people to be motivated, that is paid for by proof of homework, and is embodying the first principles of crypto. Any other questions here before we wrap up? $14 people, 14 subscribers away from 10K. I'm not going to stay on all night just to watch that, but then again, the NFTs would have the education NFTs. They would have they would like Jack Levin was talking about. They'd be able to spawn like other versions of NFTs, and they would be able to mint different tokens based on what people have achieved, based on the levels of achievement, and based on the amount of homework that somebody's done, would unlock different certifications on the blockchain, different reputation badges, and that sort of thing. And there'd be an option for people who were not wanting to do homework right away, for them to be able to pay using HEX, and that HEX would then be staked and they would be able to get it back if they do the homework then, or if they achieve whatever goal they set for themselves. And so this is probably a better way to describe and get people on board with the idea that I've been formulating for the past 5 years about how people can pay themselves with crypto to create behavior change for contingency management and for basically working for yourself. That's something that people can't understand. I've tried for a year and a half to get this idea of people paying themselves to work. And now I just realized that work is the ultimate payment. When you work for yourself, all you're doing is you're showing your motivation and your behavior change, and you're doing whatever homework benefits you the best. And somehow the word homework is probably going to go over way better with people because it's something that they understand, it's familiar, and it's a better way to it's better marketing, it's better language, it's better kind of like building blocks of the concepts that people need in order to participate in something. They need to be able to understand it. And so I'm learning, just as you are, how to be more effective as a communicator, as an educator, as a leader in the crypto space, where we're trying to get crypto back to what it should have been, which is first principles, and trying to build things that have way more utility. And what has more utility in the world than education that allows you to be more productive because you've acquired the skills that you needed? And that becomes a positive feedback loop where you keep paying yourself to unlock more skills training because you've completed that step of the process. And so we're not talking about like the homework is probably going to be like really, really, really easy. Like the first homework that you have in order to join the Chain Analysis 101 class is you just have to follow the links before they expire. You have to join the Telegram group by going to pls.academy, the website, or go to t.me/PLS Academy. And now, and then you follow the pinned link, and then you join the Chain 101 room before that pinned link expires in the next 24 hours or so. And then you're in. Yeah, working for yourself and educating yourself, being your job, is a lot of people's ideal situation. If if it meets the right criteria for them, for it to be challenging and rewarding, and being at the right level. Oh no, Nicholas, you swapped your free Pulse Doge coin PLSD for HEX. That's okay. I mean, HEX is really good too. I think they're both going to do well. I think it was deemed as safe. Yep. There's two. That's news. I wonder if one's a scam. So many scams. Listen, there was the first one, didn't even register the domain name and started creating a bunch of NFTs that they were selling and just seemed like they were for fun. And so that's not always the best use of crypto because people were speculating on them and then losing money that way. And then somebody else came along and said, I'm going to use this concept to try to onboard more people, to try to enrich people who stake HEX and build another level of the ecosystem, build on top of HEX. And they did it in a way that seems to vibe with like the things that Richard teaches about not turning into a scammer yourself when you're creating coins. For example, in my chain analysis class, we looked to see how PLSD had created 50,000 coins for themselves to provide liquidity, and then they burned the tokens provably so that they would have a higher credibility amongst those who do their research on the chain. And so that's another example of how you can learn more by taking the free class if you do the work of joining the Telegram group. But yeah, I think, and another thing you could do is, you could keep tuning in and listening to my streams. I think most people would agree that the strategy that I publicized the most for Pulse Dogecoin, when I created the videos to claim it and covered it, we interviewed the founder on Game Theory Gang and stuff. I kind of advocated for people to hold half of it and sell half of it. And I can't give you financial advice, and your financial decisions are your responsibility. And you'll never be able to come back and tell me that I got you wrecked, because every time I bring up finances, I try to explain that I'm interested in more than money from all this. And, I don't know what the price of all this stuff is going to do in the future. So it's, all I can do is educate you. And part of that education is making sure that you understand that you need to take responsibility for your own actions. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place. If you want somebody else to make your decisions for you, then I'm not that guy. Learn how to safely free claim airdrops as a hexakin. It's a skill worth understanding, and it's probably just starting. For me, I go to t.me/pulsepolice and look to see if they gave it a red flag or not. And if it does not have a red flag, then I still am cautious, but I take that into consideration. The Pulse Dogecoin airdrop is pretty valuable now. And so for some wallets that I created for friends and family, I only put $100 in to HEX a while back. And now that HEX is worth hundreds of dollars, and the airdrop from Pulse Dogecoin is worth hundreds of dollars. And so it made sense to take the risk to claim that, and even other airdrops, one other airdrop at least, because it wasn't all the money I have in HEX or something. So it was like, the correct magnitude of an airdrop for the risk of connecting to a site. And I've seen other airdrops that look really suspicious, and we know that there are airdrops out there that steal all your money. So be careful with that. Use Pulse Police and use your own best judgment and educate yourself and take your own responsibility. Free money is a really good way to get scammed, but it's also a really good way to make your own crypto valuable by, it's one motivation to get educated is learning about airdrops can make you some money. So with that being said, I'm going to keep working on different materials to help with people's education. I'm going to keep trying to do altruistic things like showing on chain that I appreciate the Pulse longevity whale. And so that's all I've got for today. Join the class. I'll drop the link one more time for people who are just deciding that they want to get on Telegram, PLS Academy, or you can go to the blog post first if you want, which is pls.academy website. You heard it here first. We made history. I am forking education. Rewind if you want to see what that means. And so for now, I'll be back on Tuesday at least to do Game Theory Gang, and Thursday every week. We've been streaming Hex Therapy now for 85 weeks. Until next time, subscribe so we can get to 10,000. Hit the like button. Comment if you're joining after the stream. Stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Maddie ALLin of HEX Therapy Live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Big videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. Does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig, because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like helps heal people.